have we got a question number 2 for today?
We do. We've had a question in from the lovely Stephen. He's in Nottingham, and he
Lovely.
said he he's parenting siblings. I feel your pain, Stephen. I have done the same. Um, but his main point is, how do I manage siblings when one child's need dominates the whole house?
Wow. A million
It's
dollar question, isn't it? That's
wow.
tough.
It is
That is
tough.
really tough.
It's really tough, and
Really
I
tough.
think it's harder on you, Stephen, because you're seeing the dynamics from that adult
Mm,
point of view, and you're trying your
mm,
best to be the best version of the parent that you want to be,
yeah.
and yet the children are on slightly different wavelengths at the moment.
Mm,
So,
mm.
Laura, could we start? How would you advise um, a foster carer that you had been supervising? What advice would you give them in that situation?
I think firstly, I would be going back with my own social worker and with the child social worker to, or as the, sorry, if I was a foster parent, if I would be seeking out, both social workers, the fostering and the child social worker, to go back through the chronology. That would be my first point of call, to really look at what do we know about these children? What do we know about their experiences? Because just because they grew up in the same household doesn't mean they've experienced things in quite the same way. I think that it's really easy to think, oh well, they're a year apart or 2 years apart or 3 years apart or whatever, and there was always drugs involved, there was always mental health involved, there was always police involved. That doesn't mean that both children have experienced the same thing. But having a look back, really reflecting on their ACEs, what do we know was working? What do we know was not working? To really pinpoint why one child will have a completely different set of needs to the other. And of course, acknowledge their shared needs, because their basic shared needs will be very, very similar. So I think firstly, having that real clear understanding about what do we know, whilst also adding another caveat to this, recognizing we don't know what we don't know. We only know what's recorded in that chronology. We only know what people have observed and what people have reported. So being quite reflective on what do we know, and what are we still trying to figure out, I think is really important. I think another thing that I would be looking at is this is the word I can never quite get, the chronological age of the children compared to maybe their developmental age. Because just because you might be parenting siblings who are maybe, let's say, 10 and 8, you're probably realistically parenting children who are, I don't know, 7 and 5. So immediately adjusting as the foster parent expectations around, okay, they're 10 on paper, but developmentally and emotionally they're 7. So what am I doing to parent a 7 and a 5-year-old and not an 8 and 10-year-old? And maybe shifting some of those things. And that might look like meal times, bedtime and wind down time, relaxation time, the type of activities that they might be doing. So really adjusting expectations around that. I think another point that I would be doing is really thinking about where can I manage, and this isn't always easy, but some one-to-one time for the children. So I'm not talking about every day, or every week, one day a week, we go off and do something big and fancy and expensive with one child and leave the other with someone else. I'm talking about little pockets of time. Little pockets of time. And hopefully, Stephen has, another adult in the household, or at least someone he can call on his support network regularly. The odd 10 minutes here and there. If you've got an older child who goes to bed slightly later, you've got this beautiful golden time, haven't you, while the little one is in bed and they get a little bit longer. Equally, you might then be able to ask that older child to have a little bit of time watching some TV or reading a book or doing, some colouring or something while you have that time with the other one. But I would be making sure that that is really clear on my visual timetable, putting some stars around it, getting the kids to decorate that, stickers, drawings, cutting out other pictures, whatever that might look like. So everybody is clear that the time is equal, even if it doesn't feel like it. And then I think if we go back to point number 1, using your pace, being playful about, crikey, is my 10 minutes with you up already? I'm going to need a cup of tea before my next 10 minutes, whatever that might be. I need some energy. We've been so busy, but accepting that this is going to be, probably complicated for a while.
Hmm.
curious about, I wonder if you thought I'd forgotten about you because I was busy with your brother, or I wonder if you felt really lonely and that reminded you of when you were little, but I want to let you know I'm still here and I'm just in the next bedroom. And then lots of empathy about how that might be feeling for them. Because we've all probably experienced time when we felt a bit sad and a bit lonely, a bit left out, maybe not to the degree of the children, but we can tap into that a little bit. So they would
Yeah.
kind of be the basics that I would be thinking about to start with. Yeah.